Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something right out of the gate. If you were really born free, why does it feel like you've been standing in line ever since? You didn't even get a chance to crawl before someone slapped a label on you. Family name, nationality, religion, gender, race. Congratulations, you've been filed and categorized before you even knew what the alphabet was. They told you that you were free, but immediately they handed you rules, restrictions, and expectations like a starter kit for life. Sit here, do this, don't ask why, raise your hand, wait your treatum, please. That wasn't freedom, it was orientation for your cage. And the beauty of the scam is they didn't need to lock you up with bars, they just built invisible fences in your head. You don't see them, you don't hear them, but you feel them every time you want to break loose and can't. You think you're making choices, but really you're just picking flavors of the same control, Coke or Pepsi, Democrat or Republican, iPhone or Android. It doesn't matter, you're still inside the system. Born free, sure, but trained to obey so well that most people never notice the theft. When they say you're born free, it sounds beautiful, poetic, almost spiritual. But it's a slogan more than a reality, because freedom, real freedom, is dangerous to the system. A free human is unpredictable, curious, creative, and uncontrollable, and the system can't have that. The very moment you take your first breath, invisible chains are already being forged. They don't throw them on you all at once because that would be too obvious, too shocking. They do it slowly in ways you won't notice. They disguise it as care, as protection, as structure. They sell you the illusion of freedom while they build fences around every corner of your life, and you, innocent and unaware, grow up believing the fences are there for your safety, not your captivity. Think about it. You didn't ask to be born in a certain country, under a certain flag, speaking a certain language, and obeying certain rules. That decision was made for you. Yet from the start, you're told that this is your identity, your heritage, your culture, and you better defend it with pride. You didn't choose it, but you're expected to live and die for it. That's the first trick of the illusion. They wrap you in a costume you never ordered and convince it's your skin. Then, as you grow, every decision is already narrowed down to a handful of acceptable options. They let you pick between A and B, but never tell you about C through Z. And you call that freedom because you're allowed to choose from the menu they wrote. They say you're free to speak, but only within the boundaries of what won't get you punished, silenced, or canceled. They say you're free to dream, but only dreams that can fit into their system. You can dream of being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, great, but if you dream of tearing down the very walls that limit human potential, suddenly you're dangerous, suddenly you're a problem. Freedom isn't about what you're allowed to do, it's about what you're able to do without chains. Yet most people never even test those limits because from childhood we're conditioned to accept them as normal. What makes it worse is how they dress it up in words that sound noble: responsibility, discipline, order. These words sound positive, but too often they're code for obedience. You're told to follow the rules, not because they make sense, but because they're the rules. And if you question them, they say you're rebellious, ungrateful, immature. Isn't it funny that the ones who profit from your obedience are the same ones who write the rules? The game is rigged, and they're the dealers. But they keep telling you you're free, so you don't notice the rigging. It's like being locked in a cage with an open ceiling but told never to look up. The illusion of freedom is the most powerful prison because it requires no guards. If you think you're free, you'll police yourself. You'll stay in line without needing chains or whips. You'll censor your own thoughts, crush your own curiosity, and narrow your own imagination. That's the brilliance of it. They don't need to lock the door if you've been trained to never walk through it. And so, people live entire lives in cages they've convinced themselves are playgrounds. They celebrate the little freedoms like choosing between brands of cereal or voting between two nearly identical politicians, while never realizing that true freedom, the kind that lets you shape your life without invisible strings, is the one they were never given. School is where the training wheels of obedience get bolted onto your soul. You walk in as a curious little human being bursting with questions, creativity, imagination, and energy. But curiosity doesn't fit the program. Creativity doesn't follow the script, so they start reshaping you. Sit down, be quiet, raise your hand before speaking. Memorize this, repeat that. Don't ask why, just accept. And slowly, what started out as a natural urge to explore the world becomes filtered through bells, schedules, grades, and punishments. You don't learn how to think, you learn how to comply. You don't learn how to question, you learn how to pass. It's not education, it's domestication. The setup is brilliant when you really look at it. They take children, who are by nature rebellious, curious, and full of life, and they put them in rows like little factory parts. A bell tells you when to start, when to stop, when to eat, when to move, when to go home. That's not education. That's training for a life of punching in and punching out. You're being prepared for the workplace before you even know what money is. The system doesn't care about your genius, your individuality, or your passions. It cares about producing citizens who will play along, who will follow orders, who won't rock the boat. If you happen to learn a few facts along the way, that's just a bonus. Notice how schools don't really teach you about money or power or how systems manipulate you. They don't show you how to challenge authority or how to think for yourself. They teach you just enough to function inside the machine, but not enough to ever question the machine itself. You might learn algebra you'll never use, but you won't learn how to identify a scam. You might be drilled on dates of wars, but you won't be taught why those wars really happened. You might read a bunch of books, but only the ones they approve, the ones that reinforce the worldview they want you to have. What they call education is carefully selected programming. And what happens if you don't comply, if you can't sit still, if you question too much, if you think differently? Then you're a problem student. You get labeled, disciplined, medicated, or pushed aside. It's not about unlocking your potential. It's about smoothing out the edges that don't fit the mold. The system wants uniformity, not originality. They'll reward the obedient student who memorizes and repeats while punishing the kid who challenges or resists. By the time you're done, you've been trained to believe that authority is always right, that questioning is dangerous, and that your worth is measured by grades on a paper. The irony is schools pretend to prepare you for the real world, but they actually prepare you for a fake world, a world of hierarchies, time clocks, paperwork, and rules that you never had a say in. You get conditioned to wait for permission before doing anything. Permission to speak, permission to leave the room, permission to have an opinion. And then you carry that conditioning into adulthood, waiting for permission to live, to dream, to break free. The genius of this setup is that most people never even notice it happen. They think their obedience is just maturity, that their conformity is just responsibility. They call it growing up, but really it's giving up. The workplace is the masterpiece of obedience training. It's where all the conditioning from childhood pays off for the system. You've already learned to sit still, take orders, and live by the bell. Now you're handed a uniform, a title, and a paycheck, and suddenly you think you're free because money is involved. But look closely. The job is just a grown-up version of school with higher stakes. You clock in and clock out. Your breaks are scheduled, your output is measured, and your worth is defined by numbers on a performance sheet. You trade your hours, the most valuable thing you'll ever own, for someone else's profit, and they pat you on the back for being a hard worker. They tell you it's noble, but it's really servitude in a necktie. Think about the language they use. Employee, human resources, manpower. You're not a person, you're a unit of production. They don't care about your dreams or your individuality. They care about what you can produce, how much revenue you generate, how efficient you are. If you collapse tomorrow, they'll replace you in a week and the machine won't miss a beat. That's how much your value really matters in the grand scheme. And yet people spend decades of their lives sacrificing their bodies, their minds, and their families for jobs that never love them back. It's a bargain so many accept because they've been taught there's no other way to survive. The illusion of choice is part of the scam. They tell you, pick your career, follow your passion. But most careers are just different cages with slightly different paint. One cage comes with a swivel chair, another comes with a hard hat, but the bars are the same. You still answer to someone higher up, someone who owns the time you sell. And promotions, that's just a longer chain with a shinier collar. They give you more responsibility, maybe more money, but less freedom. You work longer hours, carry more stress. When convince yourself it's progress because your title got upgraded. It's like polishing the bars of your prison and calling it liberty. And let's not forget the culture of fear that keeps people locked in. Lose your job, and suddenly your survival is at risk. No money, no shelter, no food. That fear keeps millions stuck in positions they hate, enduring toxic bosses, soul-crushing routines, and endless commutes because the alternative feels like death. The system knows this, and it uses that fear as a leash. You don't even need chains when someone is terrified of unemployment. They'll police themselves, work unpaid overtime, smile through abuse, and compete with each other for scraps, all while thinking they're being responsible adults. The saddest part is how work drains people of the very life they're supposed to be working for. They sacrifice their health sitting in chairs for decades, their creativity buried under spreadsheets, their relationships strained by exhaustion. And when they finally reach the finish line, retirement, they're too old or too broken to enjoy the freedom they were promised. The machine doesn't care. It already got the best years of their life. The paycheck was never freedom, was a bribe to keep them quiet, a distraction from the fact that their time was being stolen. Consumerism is the shiny leash society slips around your neck, and most people never feel it tighten. You're told you're free because you can buy things. You're told your choices are endless because the shelves are full. Pick a car, pick a phone, pick a brand of bottled water that came from the same factory as the other one. That's not freedom, that's distraction. They give you a credit card and tell you it's power, but it's really debt with a plastic smile. You spend your life chasing the next upgrade, the next fashion, the next gadget, believing that each purchase will finally fill the hole they themselves dug inside you. The trick is brilliant. First, they convince you that you're not enough as you are. You're too plain, too small, too old, too poor, too something. Then they offer you the cure: buy this, wear that, drive this, eat here, post this online, and you'll finally matter. The cure never works, of course, but by the time you realize it, there's already a new commercial with a new promise. You can't escape it because the system has built an economy on your emptiness. The more insecure you feel, the more obediently you consume. They don't just want your money, they want your self-worth tied to their products. And look at how people play along. Folks brag about their brands like soldiers showing off medals. They walk around like human billboards, advertising companies that don't even know their names. You buy a shirt and suddenly you're part of a tribe. Nike, Apple, Tesla, Gooksy, modern religions with their own logos, rituals, and commandments. The altar isn't in a temple anymore, it's in a shopping mall or glowing on a screen. And instead of offering prayers, you offer payments. It's faith with receipts. Even freedom itself is sold back to you as a product. Want to feel rebellious? Buy this leather jacket. Want to feel spiritual? Here's a subscription meditation app. Want to feel like an environmental hero? Buy the eco-friendly version of the same useless plastic junk. They've commodified rebellion, spirituality, and even morality. It's not about who you are, it's about what you can afford to display. And the result is a society where people confuse shopping with living, consumption with identity, status with happiness. What makes it more sinister is how they use consumerism to keep you quiet. Work all week, spend all weekend, exhaust yourself chasing money, then numb yourself by spending it. The cycle repeats and no one asks why, because as long as you're distracted by the next shiny purchase, you won't question the deeper theft of your life. You're too busy comparing your car to your neighbors, your phone to your coworkers, your vacation photos to strangers online. Competition replaces connection, envy replaces gratitude, and debt replaces freedom. And the whole time, the machine is laughing because it owns you twice, once at work when you earn the money and once in the store when you spend it. By the time most people wake up, they realize they've spent their lives decorating their cage with nice furniture and gadgets, mistaking it for freedom. They thought they were choosing, but they were being herded. They thought they were winning, but they were just upgrading their leash. The cycle of buy, use, throw, repeat is not a celebration of freedom. It's the quietest kind of slavery dressed up in sales, discounts, and 2-day shipping. The saddest joke of all is how society steals the one thing you can never get back, your life. You're born with this spark, this raw energy, a sense of wonder that wants to taste everything, touch everything, try everything. But little by little, that spark is stolen, reshaped, and molded until it's unrecognizable. They hand you a script before you even know you're in a play. Go to school, get good grades, find a job, climb the ladder, buy a house, get married, raise kids, retire, die. That's the path. Step off it, and people look at you like you've lost your mind. Step off it, and suddenly you're irresponsible, lazy, unstable. So most people never step off at all. They confuse conformity with safety, obedience with success, and by the time they realize the trade, their life is almost over. What you lose along the way is authenticity, the chance to actually live as yourself, not as the version society manufactured. As a kid, you might have dreamed about being an artist, an adventurer, a creator, but you're told those aren't real jobs. You're told to be practical, sensible, realistic. And by realistic, they mean compliant. Your authentic dreams are stolen and replaced with safe goals that keep the machine running. And the tragedy is that most people accept this theft without even noticing it. They convince themselves that the cage is what they wanted all along. By the time adulthood hits, you're not living a life, you're performing one. You smile at jobs you hate, laugh at jokes you don't find funny, and chase milestones that mean nothing to you personally. You celebrate promotions you didn't want, anniversaries of routines you can't stand, and retirements that arrive too late to matter. The system tells you this is normal, that this is success, that everyone is doing it, and that's true. Everyone is doing it because everyone was trained the same way, born free, trained to obey, and molded into perfect little actors on a stage they didn't build. And then comes the cruelest part. When you finally slow down enough to realize how much time has slipped through your fingers, you look back and see a life lived for other people's expectations. The spark you had as a child, the one that wanted to dance in the rain, build castles, explore caves, or paint the sky, it's gone. In its place is a resume, a mortgage, a pile of receipts, and a long list of things you never dared to try. You were alive the whole time, but you weren't really living. The system didn't need to steal your heartbeat. It only needed to steal your direction. And make no mistake, this theft is intentional. A society full of authentic, self-directed individuals would be impossible to control. They need you busy, tired, distracted, and predictable. They need you to measure your life by deadlines, promotions, and purchases, not by joy, love, or freedom. They need you to compete with your neighbors instead of connecting with them. They need you to obey quietly while convincing yourself you're making independent choices. And when you die, the machine won't even pause. It will just replace you with the next obedient actor, the next life stolen before it could truly begin. So here's where it all comes together. You were born with fire in your chest, with freedom built into your very DNA. But the moment you showed up, the system started sanding down the edges. They called it guidance, they called it education, they called it responsibility. But really, it was training to sit, training to wait, training to obey. They dressed up your cage with bright colors, jobs, paychecks, cars, gadgets, vacations, so you'd never notice the bars. And most people never do. They spend their one and only life as workers, consumers, and obedient citizens, thinking they're living free when they're really just following orders. But here's the truth that can't be hidden. The spark is still there. It never fully dies. No matter how much the system tries to bury it under rules, debt, and fear, the spark of freedom waits. And if you're brave enough to see through the illusion, you can reclaim it. You can live your own life, not the one written for you. It won't be easy. It means questioning things you were told never to question. It means stepping off the path everyone else swears is the only way. It means trading comfort for truth. But isn't that what freedom really is? The chance to live as yourself, not as a product of someone else's design. So don't let society steal what's yours. Don't give away your spark. Don't trade your freedom for obedience, your life for a paycheck, your dreams for a sales pitch. You were born free. That's not a metaphor, that's a fact. And staying free is your responsibility, your rebellion, your birthright. Thank you for listening. Thank you for daring to think. And thank you for giving your time to words that the system would rather you ignore. Good luck out there, because you'll need it, not to survive, but to stay awake. And if you can stay awake, you'll never be fully owned. Stay sharp, stay free, and remember your life is yours.